Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I want to talk about two things here in the introduction. Obviously, I have to always say the stuff about being shadow banned and all that stuff. That you have to work towards letting YouTube know you still want to see my content, and there's ways to do that, which is subscribing, resubscribing, recommending the video, sharing, whatever, leaving comments, liking the video, and of course the membership program, which is also a good way to help keep this channel going. But anyways, let's get into the other stuff here. So I first want to talk about death. Um, in our culture, death is not only evil, something bad, something undesirable, but it also is something to avoid talking about or thinking about or pretending it's never going to happen, right? It's, death is in denial. We're in denial about death. So let's start off with the part about it being evil or wrong. And, our whole culture is based in not surrendering in modern day culture, American culture, and, getting things done and being successful and no excuses. But the non surrender, the idea is you never give up, you never surrender. There is a natural part of our system that wants us to survive, right? In nature, biological creatures have a will to live. We have to keep on going. It has to be there. There has to be that, right? Like if we were, um, like, all right, whatever, I'll just die now, right? If like we just conceded to death before its time, right? Just gave up, like you see people who just give up, right? You've seen people who just give up in life, but oftentimes they're like scared of death. My dad was like this for a number of years, where they're not really living, but they're scared of dying, right? So, giving up and just, quitting on life, whatever it is, that's undesirable. It's not a part of biological life. You're supposed to fight, right? You're supposed to keep on going. You're supposed to value the opportunity of life that you're given, um, and dying and death is to be avoided, right? You're supposed to have a natural fear of it, natural, aversion to it to some extent. And I was just watching this Jimmy Valve about 3 or 4 months ago. I watched this um, 30 for 30 thing on ESPN about the North Carolina State basketball team that won the national championship, the ultimate underdogs. They shouldn't even have really made the tournament, the college tournament. And so the coach they had was Jimmy Valvano, was this eccentric sort of loud Italian guy, and he ended up getting cancer. In the sports world, he was just consumed with this story, and he started the Jimmy V, the V's Foundation, and he was a big part of ESPN, and he said never give up, never surrender. And then he died of cancer, right? And I've talked about this. Like people say, I beat cancer, and it's like, well, yeah, for now, or whatever. Of course, now with turbo cancer, and you don't beat death. And in our culture, the bad guy dies at the end. Most movies, death is the ultimate, sign of losing. Right, the good guy wins and lives happily ever after. The bad guy dies. Villain. And death is something where, it's a sign of losing. And if death was bad, then why do we all face it? It's one inevitable thing we all face, right? Like we're not guaranteed anything else but death. Like when you're born, you could die a day later, an hour later. You could die, during childbirth, right? Like you have, whatever your lifespan is, you're definitely going to die, right? And also things end. And like that's the other thing. Like things just end. Things are, whatever it might be. You have the death of things in your life, right? When you turn, for me it was like I would just turn 30, and I noticed that there was physical decline. I noticed when I played sports, I would be sore and I would be, I couldn't recover as quickly as I used to. Things like that. Like I was still able to do what I used to do in age 30, but my body wasn't recovering. Even again, to my late 20s, and then I really noticed it when I turned 30, and then after that, of course, 40s and 50s, you notice that there's a physical decline where you're kind of developing and growing and becoming something as a young person. You notice that there's physical decline, then as you get older, more and more you can see that your body's wearing out, and that death becomes a thing, right? All of a sudden, you see like you're doing what your parents used to do, like what you considered old people, right? What old people, you remember things like from when you were a kid and looking at your parents and your grandparents and things like this, and you start seeing that now you're that person. You're older, and your way that you think about life changes. You just mature. Just the amount of time you put in, the years you put in, you start wearing down, maybe even emotionally, mentally, things like that, right? You don't have as much, fire in you or whatever. So testosterone, and you understand. You start seeing that death is, just around the corner, right? It's something that's you're something that you didn't think about at all. Now you have to start thinking about it, and what are you going to leave behind, and how you prepare. Whatever the younger generation. What are you gonna, what's the culmination of your life, and then processing this event that's going to happen. And so, in the American culture and Western culture, we don't have rites of passage. Like there used to be extensive rites of passage in tribal and Aboriginal type of cultures and various village-based cultures, where there'd be a celebration and a acknowledgement that you're going from being a boy or a girl to a woman or a man, right? You're going from being a kid to an adult. This process of being a teenager. It's one of the reasons teenagers struggle so much, because there's no acknowledgement, right? Like we had this thing called confirmation in the Catholic tradition. It's kind of a thing. It's like not as big as, say, bar mitzvah, some of these things. But culturally, there needs to be some recognition of these milestones, and we just don't really have it. And, in terms of being prepared for marriage and life, there's none of that. Like, you get years and years of schooling to prepare you for a job. Like, just when you start in elementary school and you go all the way through to whatever you go through, that's all to prepare you for a job. And then you go to college. For people who go to college, and maybe you get a master's degree or a doctorate. Like there's 4 to 8 years of training for your future job. And then when you go to your job, there's training, right? They train you how to do your job. And there's none of that for being a husband or a wife. Like there's almost zero training. You can watch your parents, who usually have a bad marriage, and there's not much training for these big things, right? Our culture doesn't train people how to be good human beings and how to be effective at these things. People can go into self-help things and try to learn from the psychological, the psychological model or whatever it is, movement. But that's not really good, because usually the psychologists have shitty marriages, and they're not like, they don't have good lives. Often they're miserable, maybe on medication themselves, right? So there's a lot of medication going on, self-medicating, drinking alcohol, smoking pot, high levels of that, or being on antidepressants now. And like, what's that about? Like, if you think about like being unable to live a normal, actual life, that you need to be medicated just to, get through a day or whatever, right? So needing something to help you sleep, right? Like you can't sleep, right? Like why can't you sleep? Right? People having all kinds of issues, like with basic things, inability to breathe, difficulty breathing, with different types of asthma, right? All these different. I mean, they need medications just to help them do basic natural functioning. There's like a weakening of the system, and then in all of this, there's zero training about death, right? Like there's no preparation at all for it. It's just something that you avoid thinking about, and you don't like want to have it happen, and then all of a sudden it sneaks up on you. And so for something that is inevitable, our one guarantee is that we're going to die. why would that be, right? Like, again, there has to be some, natural fear and a natural, fighting off the idea of dying, right? You have to, in your, whatever your existence is, you have to want to live, right? There has to be that. That has to be there. Otherwise, it would be pointless and people would, just take the easy way out in that sense. Um, Not just in terms of suicide, but just high risk behaviors, and life would be cheap, and it shouldn't be, right? So, like I said, that's important. But death is inevitable, and if death was bad or evil, why would it be there? Like, why would God make death, a reality? And think about what it'd be like if nothing died. Well, this place would be overpopulated, right? There'd be, I don't know, a trillion people now, or whatever it is, billions of people, 20, 50 billion people here. The planet would be unsustainable. But all the other life forms, right? Like, let's say, people think about being vegans and these things, but it's important that that your body's being eaten by something, like there's microbes, whatever. Like your body gets eaten, like your system, your flesh and all these things has to be eaten by whatever it is. There's animals, like people dislike vultures, and we have an opossum that lives in our barn. We've been watching, like we walk in there and it just looks at us, right? It's sleeping during the day. They're nature's cleanup crew. They eat these, dead animals that are there or whatever. And they play a very important role. Let me just um, say this before we go further with this thing. What we're looking at is the death of a system, right? Like this stuff that happened. I'm going to get into Kamala and her goofy vice presidential pick, and there's already crap coming out about that. And of course, Trump just keeps on being Trump. But these are not great people. These are not great leaders. And we're going to transition. I want to cover that in a moment too. Transitioning into that. But what we're looking at is the death of something. And these people that are like horrible people that are the leaders or whatever it is are being presented, and everything is the lower. It's lower and weaker, and signs of a fracture in our system, right? And it's the decline of the system. And so all these things are there, like the death of a person, but also the death of a country or civilization. These countries that are all across the globe have had different names and have different cultures and have different dominant, people there, because things don't stay, things don't live forever, right? Things don't exist forever. And so most people die badly. I saw this with my parents, particularly my dad. My kids and I went to visit my parents, like we were going to, I don't know exactly what happened, but my ex stayed home and I drove my kids from Virginia to Boca Raton, Florida. We had an ashram in Molina, Georgia, which my brother was a caretaker. And I stayed over there, and my kids got really sick in the car right before we got to the ashram. And I was sick there that night, which is kind of interesting. And I went down and I saw my parents, and my kids were fine with it, but my parents were, my dad was like a walking skeleton. He had irritable bowel syndrome, and he couldn't see, so he was kind of like basically blind, and he couldn't digest food, he couldn't eat food. He had a nurse that came in and bathed him, like he couldn't do basic bodily functions, and he had withered down. He'd always been fat. He called it his labanza. My dad was Sicilian and Albanian, and this labanza was some sort of Italian name for a pot belly. And my whole life he had been kind of overweight, obese, not obese, but, pot belly, bigger than, overweight. And now he was just like a skeleton. And the things he didn't have a lot of things he really liked to do, but he liked to eat. And he couldn't eat anymore because he had this, digestive issues. And he liked to watch TV. And, my parents were in separate bedrooms. They had separated for a little bit. And they had their doors open. And they were watching baseball. My dad was listening to the baseball game. But, like, the TVs were completely synced up. And I was sitting there with my kids. And, my mom had turned the heat up. It was 80 degrees in Florida. She had the heat on. It was like 90 degrees in the house. And I was like, oh my God, this is horrible, right? Like just watching my dad and, and he was just being kept alive and he was terrified of death, like really scared of death. And I mean, I know he had some like sort of panic attacks when he went to a dentist. I don't know, because dentists when he grew up were brutal, it's painful. So he had some kind of thing like that. My sister was a dental technician at the time, and she told me about it. And like he went there and had a panic attack, couldn't go through with the dental procedure, and my sister was put in a bad position because the dentist got pissed, and it was a whole thing. Like he was supposed to get a discount or something. I don't know. But there was just the fear of death, and I saw that they were just keeping him alive until we ran out of insurance and there's no more money, and that's how the medical system works. But it was doing nothing to prepare him for death. I know there's these hospice places. I'm not sure how good they are, how they work, or whatever. But it has to be there, done sooner. Like you have to have some element of being prepared for death much earlier, right? A little bit your whole life. Like it just has to be this acceptance that this thing's going to happen, because it might happen when you're young. Like it's just it's not guaranteed that you're going to live a long life, and there's an element to it on a spiritual level where there's a release that it's a beautiful thing. And if you've developed spiritual capabilities, you're being free from your earthly bondage. If you reach the stage called mukti, or liberation, which is you're no longer bound to planet Earth, based in your samskaras, which is like ancient yogic spiritual teachings that everyone should know about. That there's like a celebration of your accomplishment. Your soul is now free. It might come back to planet Earth in a future life, but it might not. But you don't have to, where everyone else has to come back because they haven't graduated from this, earthly existence. And if you meditate, you're getting in contact with the etheric part of yourself. And so there's some knowledge or some experience of your soul and your etheric life. And there's just a release of your physical body, and it's just a natural thing. As you get older and you get more, you start to, get more experience with this etheric side of yourself. And having illnesses and things like this, your consciousness drifts away into your making contact with the other, the element of yourself that is in your physical body, your soul and your spiritual essence. And that all has to be done. If you're doing that correctly, you're preparing for that, and you're already, meditating and connecting with that, other, the other world, the other, the brighter world, the etheric world. And so you're prepared for that transition from dying to, to your soul leaving and going back to its original source, and then doing whatever it does for, your next incarnation or whatever it might be. And all of that is, is needs to be dealt with to some extent. I mean, I feel really good personally about my time doing the meditation because it's a preparation for this inevitable thing that's going to happen. And making use of this time here to move your soul forward, to get something out of your life spiritually, which is a huge part of it. Because when when you're doing something like that, there's a success to the whole thing. That your life isn't pointless. Like there's, your suffering isn't pointless, and all these things, right? And suffering can be, a kind of a, it's just, it's helpful in this like understanding that, if you feel healthy and invincible all the time, and happy, and everything's going well, then death becomes something of a horror show, a nightmare. Why would you want to die when you're so happy and you're so, but you look at the miserable people around the world. There are people who just long for death because they're just in miserable situations. And that's, that's a gift in some ways, right? Like being, miserable and being, physically unable to function, because it's like, oh, it's, I just don't want to keep on going with this thing because it's, that usually happens to people. It gets dumped on them all at once at the end of their life. But if you have little doses of that, where the death is possibly a good thing. someone who has a miserable life and just is, free from it, right? Like, and it's just the release of death, right? And so all these things have to be contemplated, but in terms of a systemic death, the death of our system, there's a time where it becomes obvious that your system is just producing bad people, and it's a bad system. It's taking everyone in a wrong direction. That people are getting worse, and just in terms of their, all of it, their ability to function, their, entitlement, their selfishness, like all the things we see, their stupidity, their idiocracy. And our leaders right now, this is a good indication of that, this presidential race, where people are, in denial of one side of the aisle. They're denying how bad Kamala is, or they're denying how bad Trump is, or how bad, the whole party system is, and how bad people are in general, and believe that this thing can be some kind of a miracle and it can be saved. But what are you saving? Like, what is so great about our system that's worth saving? Like, and I'm not talking about some traditional crap that you did or some happy moments you had. I mean, overall, the system is taking people in the wrong direction. Like, the kids are getting worse. 60% of kids are depressed, right? And these are the leaders that you have, right? And so me telling people the truth here, like I just talked about Christianity and the Bible and the religion, how it's failed in these things, and, that there's a higher level and whatever. And is it 2 videos ago, the last video? It was like, America needs bankruptcy or whatever it was. And I talked about this extensively and about, the whole thing, and spirituality versus religion and whatever it is. But, I went through this process myself. And so for years I did the Sage-Mark system. And there was a guy named Master Chargy who was the third master of the system. And he was completely beyond me. He was somebody who was, he was operating at a higher level, and it was based in service. He worked tirelessly for the system and helped all of us through that work. And the system had been built by, in America, some boomer hippies and a lot of these Indian people who had built ashrams and had contributed money to and not only that, but they had gone to India years and years ago and learned the meditation and brought it back to America. And I benefited from that, and I recognized and was grateful for that, for them, the work they put in, right? And certainly the work Master Chargy did, so that I could get this gift of doing this meditation. I just passed my 31st year of doing it, started in 1993 in August. And so, it was a blessing, and I was very happy with the people for their contribution, and certainly to the master of the system. And so, and it just came from a place of gratitude. I was grateful for it all the time. Like, I was constantly aware of how great it was and how it was helping me and helping me transform. Doing this meditation, there's an energy, this transmission that's given. When you sit in meditation, this divine love that's given. Pranhuiti, this energy. And so, complete blessing, and I went through a big transformation in 2014-15. Master Chargy passed away, and my marriage of 18 years, it was a nightmare. My ex was somebody who had, been abused by her parents sexually and physically and emotionally and whatever. At least that was her story. And she had been institutionalized. She had gone to a hospital, suicide attempts and things. And like when we'd have arguments, when she was young, 18, 19, whatever, stalked, right? She had all these like traumas and had big psychological issues. And, I talked about this in my Journey series. And, we'd have an argument and I'd have to hide the knives because she'd cut herself or threaten to kill herself and say it was my fault. It was like, it was hell. It was like, to paraphrase it, I'm, giving you cliff notes of this thing. And I went through that, and when that ended, I went through this cleaning process, and I just felt better. Like the cleaning, the spiritual cleaning I got was, miraculous. And I had been such a low functioning person, like a total underachiever. Didn't understand life, didn't have any like goals and ambition, like just didn't, I wasn't going anywhere, right? Like I just, my life sucked and I was a low functioning person. The Sajmark system helped me. Like I'm, very aware of, how it like filled in the holes and the gaps and the deficiencies that I had, right? And just having a goal and a spiritual goal, it was, revolutionary. And so they transitioned over to this guy, Chargy, left a master named Kamlish, who I had a good relationship before, and I thought he was a good practitioner of the system. He had been a good preceptor for the system, right? And I thought he was going to be great, and I saw him become the master of the system. Like he went through the spiritual process, which is a whole big deal, which I won't get into now. But it's like it's spiritual work that's done, and these spiritual talents and gifts are opened up to the person so they can serve other people, serve God, and serve other people through God, so their service of God. And I thought the guy would be a great master. And he ended up being a complete piece of shit. I mean, stupid. Like I had these, interactions with him while I was walking away going, this guy is like Chargy was like brilliant in ways that I couldn't even understand. Like I couldn't understand him as a, because it was beyond my capacity. But Dodgy was this guy Kamlish changed his name to Dodgy, gave himself a nickname named Dodgy, Daagi, but it sounded like Dodgy, the English term for being, seedy and scummy and these things. And so I had this experience of his divinity, this guy Kamlish, but he was stupid and made bad decisions, and they started getting into scams and criminal activity and stupid shit like the Brighter Minds program. And I started talking about this in the Journey series. And people from the mission came to me and said, do you know about this? Do you know about that, right? Because there were people like me who were struggling with how bad he was, right? But the majority of people in the system were in denial and were pretending he was fine or just didn't want to deal with it because they were sheeple in their essence, right? Not everybody's, even though that they had an element of spiritual truth, they weren't willing to confront the, reality of the system, our demonic system in this thing, right? The economic system and the things that people in the truth community do. But there were two things that sort of put me over the edge with the guy. Was the Brighter Mind scam, where he was, it was a scam, the midbrain activation scam in India that had been fleshed out and been perpetrated on Indian people, where they would put blindfolds on kids and teach the kids to cheat with the blindfolds and pretend the kids could smell colors. And I mean, it was like just really stupid, right? And some of you guys know about this. And he also threw his previous master under the bus, which is sacrilegious in this kind of tradition and this kind of spiritual organization. And he was just being a punk with them and, erasing him and his great works from the system, which was like completely ungrateful and just, not really, nobody really understood it. And I came to see that the guy just had fallen and he was just a piece of shit. And like the system itself was collapsing. And so I published some of my Journey series. I put them on Facebook, where I had hundreds of, there's probably about 5 to 10,000 real practitioners of Sajmark system, maybe 5, diehard people. This is their thing and they love it, right? There's talk about it being hundreds of thousands. But, most of the people in India, but people in, they're just, people who are like higher developed people that really understand what the system is. And a lot of them are my friends on Facebook. And Kamlish watched my video where I was just trashing him in the system. And a bunch of his cronies watched it. And a bunch of people in India watched it. My Journey series regularly got like 2,000 to 3,000 views per video. Some of these videos, like I made a 9-hour video and they were all watching it, right? And, these videos were getting like 10,000 views. Like, it was like there was 7,000 people in the system watching it. And I kind of regretted it a little bit later for my own personal self, like I think I did the right thing. It's just the backlash. But there were a bunch of people in India who were prejudiced against Kamlish because of his caste. He was a business caste and they were Brahmin or whatever. And so those people didn't really count because they weren't really truthers. And there was a lot of people who saw what was going on, but they wouldn't speak up about it. And they started telling me, people were coming to me and saying they were calling for my assassination. Like, people were potheaded in chat rooms and things like that, and they were all mad at me. And then there are people who are using me as, as like sort of a weapon against Kamala, making memes and shit like that. But they weren't willing to come out publicly themselves, right? They were, they were using my, whatever I was willing to do in my having a platform. And the whole thing got icky. But I did what I had to do. And I told people what they should be able to hear, right? And that's my point. These were people who meant something to me. And, they had, when I went through the divorce, most of them, Kamala took my ex's side. There's things that made it easy for me. And I didn't care about these MNFers really that much anymore. Like, they were part of my community, but, I wasn't really close with any of them. Even though we shared something great, but that thing that was great was no longer there. But, I'm saying this because I was willing to tell the truth to these people because it had to be done. And I knew that there would be backlash or whatever. And I, lived with whatever it was. I mean, it wasn't really that bad. And, now I don't have connection to the organization or the community of people, and it's a little bit sad. And, some of these people I was really grateful for. Some of them are really saintly, really nice, wonderful people. But they failed to deal with this, or they seem to be failing in dealing with this thing. And, I've tried to preserve it with this gratefulness meditation thing I'm doing. But so you understand that, I said the same thing to these people as I am saying to Christians or I'm saying to Trumpers. Because, I saw the truth or whatever, I saw something that, wasn't right, was off. And I had to say something because that's my job here. And I want people to understand that. Like, it's the death of something. These people are not great. The system can't be saved, but if it was going to be saved, there would have to be great people. And making Trump great or making Biden great, because you have to believe that the person has to be great because the system is, on the ropes, right? But there's no great people coming. There's no saviors coming because the system is doomed and should have collapsed years ago. It's a bad system. It's demonic. But even if it was a great system, civilizations collapse. Great ones, right? Things with wonderful, that are connected to divinity. There's just ruins of civilizations splattered across this planet, right? I'm going to show you the pyramids in a little bit. There's a thing on the pyramids I'll cover towards the end of this video. But anyways, so I just wanted to put this out as an introduction. We're going to get into some of the evidence that, everything I'm showing you here and other truthers are showing you, and just what the mainstream news is showing you, is that the system's collapsing. Because we suck right now. Like, people are... the system is producing bad people, and that's what a system's for, is to help people be there, support what's best in people. But this system helps to drag people down to a lower level. And that's what's happening. Our religion and all these things, our economic system, that's all what they're doing. And so, here it is. Let's get into it here. Okay, so one of the best things about the internet is that there's stuff people say and do, and it just sits there forever, and then they get nominated for vice president or president or something, and then people find it, right? Because people will comb through everything, every interview, everything that they can find. Now, this is an interview with Joy Reid, with the guy here, Walz, and he made this unfortunate statement. This isn't going to bury his campaign by any means, but, it kind of defines him as a person.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Misinformation is a term that came from the intelligence community, the way it's used now. It was originally from the intelligence community when they would put out misinformation, or other governments would put out misinformation. And the intelligence community regularly puts out misinformation. Everyone kind of knows that. It's in movies and TV shows. You see the intelligence community, CIA or whatever it is, in movies and TV shows, spy movies, put out misinformation. Now there's a whole division within the intelligence community that's about putting out misinformation on the internet, right? And the government puts out misinformation. So this clown just said, your freedom of speech is not protected if you are using misinformation. So if you're lying, you're putting out whatever it is, right, on the internet, then you don't have freedom of speech, which is not how freedom of speech was designed, right? And hate speech is something that they can say that's hate speech. I mean, it's the government defining hate speech. It's the government defining misinformation. Government that's killed more people. The American government's killed more people than the American citizens have. The government's harmed more people than the American citizens have, right? They've done more destruction to nature and all these other things. The government's done more bad boop than you can't swear early on in the videos. The government's done more bad boop than the people could ever do. And this clown just said your freedom of speech isn't protected if you're saying things that the government calls misinformation or hate speech, right? And so that's the First Amendment. So there's no Constitution then, right? And again, I don't care about this kind of stuff, but this isn't aged well, because misinformation is something where you can, he said, our democracy's at threat. We can call it misinformation and we can censor you. And that's just not that's the opposite of what's supposed to be there. Okay, so I already started this video yesterday on October 7th, Wednesday. And I started this part in the beginning of the video. And then, I made the rest of the video that you're going to see in a bit today on October 8th. And then somebody sent me this. And so this is really important. This is when some people send me stuff that's really, I usually don't know whether I should just leave a video the way it is and edit it or add new stuff other than keep the stuff around till the next time. But this is really pertinent. So he's running this scam I showed you. And so here it is.
Look, freedom is when freedom is, Can we get somebody to help? Somebody's hot. Somebody's hot.
Is somebody hot?
Somebody to help.
Is somebody there to help?
You okay?
Is she okay?
Drink some water, folks. It is hot out.
Exactly. This guy, he's taking control. He's running the same old bullshit I already showed you. I'll show you the compilation. It's a scam. So he's on his first day of his campaign thing. He's running this scam that Obama did and Trump did and all these people. I couldn't find, I searched for Kamala, but Kamala hasn't had enough events. I mean, Kamala's never received a vote other than in the Senate. And so she hasn't been on the presidential trail yet. So I don't know if they're going to have her run this as well. She'll probably screw it up. But maybe she has and I haven't found it. But they've already got this guy doing it, right?
It's somebody else. Thank you.
Look at how concerned he is.
We get water?
Can you get some water? Get some water over there.
They're so weird. They're so weird. They're so weird.
You okay?
They're so weird. That's their. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
They're so weird. It's that we've degraded into like 8th grade here. You're so weird.
Thank you all for helping. Grateful. Thank you.
So this is from yesterday.
Thank y'all. Take care of one another on this. This is why we gather. Look, it's hot. It is hot. I'll come again. They've got folks here. We'll make sure we're okay. But I have to tell you all again, in all seriousness, to come and gather like this, to talk about our freedoms, the ability to talk about what could be good. And I have to say, this idea of caring for our neighbor and kindness and a hand up when somebody needs it, or just the sense of that people go through things, and to be able to be there when they need it, that's who we are. It's not about mocking. It's not name callings. And you see it amongst them.
It's not about mocking and name callings. That's my job, bro. You piece of shit, right?
Yay.
Yay. You know, this is another one of the Trump shooting. Like, they just fake all this stuff, right? It's political theater and it's despicable.
Thank you all. They do. Thank you all. We're okay. We have someone down. They're treating him. They're getting him some water, and it's good.
He needs water. He's obviously dehydrated. If you just give some water, it's fine. That's all you got to do.
He's going to get up. You guys need some water, too? We'll ask them. Teddy, can you see if they have some more water? That'd be great. Take care of your neighbors.
That's what we do. We're Democrats. We take care of our neighbors. We get it done. We take care of them. So this is from Wisconsin. He was in Wisconsin yesterday, right? And now he's in Michigan. This is what the one that person sent me. So he did this twice, right? I mean, he's really going for it. Like he's setting a new record for being an actor and a fake piece of crap. Woo!
A big thank you to Adam. I think we can all agree our future's pretty bright. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, we better wear shades. Our future's so bright, we better wear shades.
And hello, Michigan.
Woo!
You know, we Minnesotans, you probably know this. We're a stoic people of few words. But holy hell, can you throw a party here in Michigan?
Holy hell!
Wow.
Wait, what's happening?
I want to take a moment to acknowledge a few friends, folks that I've gotten to know. And let's be very clear. This is someone who I consider my dearest friend and someone who taught all the other governors how to fix the damn roads. Governor Whitmer.
Governor Whitmer, your shout out. Wait, what's happening? Is there somebody? What is it?
You have got a treasure in Michigan. And I'll tell you what. We share a lot between us in the upper Midwest. We share.
What?
Oh, we need some water.
We need some water
Somebody
here.
Down. We need some water.
There's water.
Medic. We need a medic right here. You got somebody here? You got him? All right, we got a medic on the way. Thank you for caring for your neighbors. Thank you for showing what Michigan does. Look, we share a lot of things. That's one of them. We're neighbors and we're not weird. That's for sure.
Boom. So then he had the weird thing. He did the other one first. He did the one in Wisconsin first where they were shelling out, "We're not weird," which is so messed up. But anyways, he went for it, right? And he's gone for it like within a couple of days. Within 2 or 3 days, this is going to be Jojo Bagoo stroking this guy's arm. I'll show you that in a second. But first, I want to get to the compilation. Now, I showed you this compilation. I don't know when it was, but in the second or third video about Trump's fake shooting. And so it's going to be around, I don't know, 5750. If you just saw the compilation, you want to skip through it. You go to around 5750. Or when you see this picture again. So it's about 15 minutes long. But when this picture comes back up, if you're scrolling through, that means the compilation's over. But if you haven't seen it, it's well worth watching. Because they do all this fake shit all the time. This guy just went on a binge. He just binged it. But anyways, here it is. Okay, so I decided to re-put together my original compilation because it'll be better quality. I have better equipment. It'll just be better. But this is a compilation of this political stunt. And you can see it's a stunt because it's done over and over again. At the end, I'll explain how and why it happened. But this is the compilation. Let's start here with Obama. He did it a lot, and he sort of perfected it.
I'm sorry, what's going on? Somebody's not feeling good? All right. Why don't we have... We can get our doctors back there to help out. Somebody want to go to my doctor's office and just have them? All right. Where was I? Can somebody help out, please, and get Doc Jackson in here? Somebody grabbing our doctor? Of course. In the meantime, just give her a little room.
You know, so there's a command of the room, right? There's a being compassionate.
You guys know where the doctor's office is? 'Cause just go through the palm doors. It's right next to the map room. There he is. All right, there's Doc Jackson. He's all right.
But this is a more famous one. There is a young woman behind him who's pregnant, no less.
That one illness. There you go. You okay? I'm right here. I got you.
He saves her.
No, you're okay. This happens when I talk too long.
Makes a joke.
Why don't you go? You got it? Come on.
Woo, you're such a great guy. Woo. Woo. What a leader.
Good catch, by the way.
Good catch, he says. Want to let you know, the woman, you heard the applause, she's okay. Her name
She's
is
okay. Obama saved her. She's okay. Bill Clinton started this.
The banks have $1.8 trillion in cash. We got plenty of money to put this country to work. We need a doctor here. This lady fainted in the heat.
It's diagnosing her, taking control.
Let's give her some water. It's hot out here.
Water. This is a big thing. Water's a big thing, they say.
Is there a doctor here? All right, we got a doctor. There's nothing the rest of you can do, so pay attention to me. You'll just get in the way. She'll be fine. Believe me, at my age, it's
She didn't have a cardiac arrest or just, anything like that. She'll be fine.
rarely does a lady faint on me.
Trump got into the action several times.
Is there a doctor in the house, please? Doctor?
Is there a doctor anywhere? Doctor?
Doctor, please. We have plenty of time, right? That's fine. Take your time.
So they start singing Amazing Grace. Look at him. Look at this dork. Look at this fish boy MNF'er. Pathetic fish boy.
You don't need, Mr. President, you don't need North Carolina, the 9th District. You got someone, all right. Got someone heated over here. Give them some space.
A doctor in the house, please. Doctor, please.
Look at him take control. Look at him. He's such a compassionate, take control guy.
Doctor in the house, thank you.
Is there a doctor? Doctor in the house? Give him some water.
Put hatred in our heart. Could we have a doctor, please? A doctor. A doctor, please. Thank you. A doctor, thank you. Thank you, doctor. Thank you. It is about 100 degrees in here, folks, so.
It's so hot. It's just hot and people are passing out left and right.
It's about rallying when things go wrong. She's okay. It's okay. That happens to a lot of people who have to stand up for a long time.
Standing up. If you have to stand up for a long time, you fade. It's just fact.
We need one of our medics here. We've
Medics?
got a young girl who fainted. But it happens all the time. She's going to be okay. Sometimes standing up. If anybody is starting to feel tired, standing up, bend your knees and eat your breakfast and lunch. You okay? Make sure she's okay too, right here. Right here. Everybody else feeling okay? Are y'all still fired up and ready to go? Are you?
There you go. Rick Santorum.
Country before government decided that it had to start taking from those. Sorry, we have someone who's, I think the heat has got to them. So make sure if there's any emergency personnel that can get here, I want to make sure that this person gets some help.
Taking control. Being compassionate.
Hand that down.
Give water. Give a water bottle.
You okay? Just tell us he's okay. Right here.
Give him a chair. Get a water bottle and a chair. They just happen to have a chair and a water bottle there. Go in the audience. Make sure she's okay. This is, yeah, it's not staged at all. This is just, it just happens. Woo! So compassionate. Such a good guy.
I am struck by how many young people. There's somebody fainted.
Did somebody faint?
Somebody fainted over there.
Over there, did somebody faint?
Can we get them some water, some help?
Water and some help, a doctor perhaps?
Okay. Get somebody over there. So let me know if you need any. Is there somebody here who can help? We want to make sure that we take care of the lady who fainted.
Woo.
I thought it was the talk of Republicans that might have done it.
Good joke. So there's always a thing, right? There's a joke. It's too hot. Happens. Person's going to be okay. Get him some water. Get him a doctor. So here's 3 more times Obama. And so that's a total of 5 I found right off the bat. There's probably many more out there.
Good to be back in New Hampshire. Oh, so, okay. We'll be all right. They probably were just standing too long. Just give them a little space.
They'll be all right, reassuring you, and then telling you what happened. They're probably just standing too long, so they decided to pass out. You know, I mean, when you're standing forever, eventually you're just going to pass out. That's what happens. Everyone has a certain level of time, and especially if it's hot, you stand and then you pass out.
Where's our EMS folks?
Get the doctor.
They'll be okay. Just give them a little space.
Just give them space. That's space.
This happens sometimes. You guys been here a while after the magging? Well, no, you have to eat ahead of time.
You got to eat. You got to eat some food.
Keep your blood sugar up.
Boom. Keep your blood sugar up.
We got somebody over there? Jordan? Right in the middle. Here we go. Here's our guy.
Boom. He looks a little bit like deer in headlights, like Jojo Magoo.
I'm sorry, what's going on? Somebody's not feeling good?
Does not feel somebody.
All right. Why don't we have, we can get our doctors back there to help out. Somebody want to go to my doctor's office and just
taking control here.
Like somebody might have fainted up here. If we got some of the EMS,
somebody fainted.
Buddy, don't worry about. Folks do this all the time.
They do it all the time. I know. They just didn't die. They just didn't have cardiac arrest. They didn't have a heart attack. They didn't have a stroke. Just it happens. They're going to be fine.
Meetings. I mean, you always got to eat before you stand for a long time. That's a little tip, but they'll be okay. Just make sure that give them a little room.
You know, clear it out. 6 feet of space. Leave them in the middle, laying on the floor. They'll be fine.
All right, everybody all right?
Everybody all right. Let's get going again. I don't want to rush things. We're in no rush. Take our time. Let's make sure everyone knows how compassionate and great I am.
And they're the men's champs. Folks, it's okay. Forget. Want some water?
Want some water? No, you gotta throw it. She's way over here. Just throw the water bottle at her. Like. But then he just sort of loses it. Like he's just lost focus here. Like he's just so clueless. And so, like, maybe he thinks it's a staged event, but he's not sure. He's not in on it. Because usually he would offer water, and you're supposed to take command of the room. And Jojo Magoo just sucks so much worse than all the rest of them, right? Just shows you how incompetent. Like, he can't even pull this staged. I mean, this posing, these posers. He can't even pull this off. So this happened probably organically at an event. And then they saw it hit. It was a big hit. It made the person look like they were in control. Oftentimes it was when they were talking about healthcare. If you see the full speeches, healthcare was involved. There's probably, I've seen probably 10 or more of Obama doing it. You see Trump's done at least 3 times, probably more. There's a couple more with Hillary. And the first person I know who did it was Clinton. But there's other politicians. I'm forgetting them. I think, there's just been all these different, it's a thing they do. And it shows the person being compassionate. It shows them being competent, right? And just looking at the bigger picture, humanizing them, taking control, right? You hear the people applauding. The Obama one where the woman fainted right behind him, and he turned around to catch her, like that was the creme de la creme. But it's just political theater, and it's just so bad, right? It shows you just how fake it is. And you can say, well, Trump, they're all fake except for Trump's, right? And these are, people who are willing to pose and act. These are posers and actors, right? This is just posturing and posing. And it's something they do to fool you, the audience member, into believing something about them that isn't true. That they care about you, and they don't, right? It's just a bunch of posers. I wasn't the one who first made one of these compilations or pointed this out. Obama, I don't know who did. I don't know who one of my viewers sent me a video or something. But then I went and researched, and I found a lot more people. Like I found Trump, I found Rick Santorum, and now, of course, Biden and these. I found Hillary and Bill Clinton. And so there were some out there as a compilation, but I found more of them. But other people know about it, right? I'm not the only person who knows about this. I'm not the only person who's made videos about this. And then everyone who's watched my videos have talked about, shared it, whatever. I mean, a number of people saw my video, some hundreds of thousands, when I first posted this years ago. And since then. So this is a known thing, right? And it's been discovered. And yet they just did it twice in a row. And so, they really want to upset people who know about things like this because they're not trying to hide it from the rest of us. And, it's like they're trying to provoke us, and they just think the other people are just so dumb. Or, of course, they don't watch truther videos. But, it's really egregious, right? It's really bad. So let's get into the Jojo Magoo thing here. So I can't play the music, but it is a George Michael song. I believe the name of the song is Careless Whisper. Watch Joe Biden grope this dude here. So it's a good meme because they're playing Careless Whisper, and then his Secret Service agent there. And he did this when the hostages were there.
Imagine their joy right now. Can't imagine their joy right now. They're home. Tomorrow's a big day. The 13th birthday of Miriam. Miriam, where are you?
Miriam's going to be 13 tomorrow.
Come here. You all know we have a tradition in the Biden family. We sing happy birthday.
Wait, you have a tradition in the Biden family where you sing happy birthday? What is this tradition? How can we get in on it? So the Biden family, when it's somebody's birthday, they sing the song happy birthday to them. It's a Biden tradition. It's an actual Biden tradition that he's bringing to the White House.
On any birthday, you ready? All of you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Miriam. Happy birthday to you. Remember, no serious guys till you're 30.
Oh my God! Like he's always got to do something like that, right? Like he's always got to make it. I mean, it's already creepy and weird.
God love you. She's all Sue's daughter. Now she gets to celebrate with her mom. That's what this is all about.
That's what it's all about. I thought the Hokey Pokey was all about, bro.
Families able to be together again.
Boom. So there is, somebody sent me a piece of this interview that Kamala Harris did with the View ladies, back about 6 months ago. And she's got almost as much eyeliner as J.D. Vance.
He seems very robust. He told me. So, people are saying that Biden is too old. We hear it constantly.
6 months ago. Look at her smug look. Look at her smug look. No, they don't know. They don't know.
I've met him many times. He seems very robust. He told me he works out every day.
Yeah. He works out. He works out every day. What do you think is working out at age 70 or 70, well, 80 is? What do you think is working out? Like, do you think he bench presses? What do you think? I mean, does that mean like he walks? We've seen the guy. He has Parkinson's, and he's getting stiffer and stiffer. He can't even turn his neck around. He can't turn his head around. He's got to turn his whole body if you address him. He's not working out, bro.
See him on television. All right, I'm the same age, so I resent that remark. But besides that, the other side seems doddering to me. He's eating cheeseburgers. He's overweight. He's always in a golf cart. I mean, why is Biden getting the bad rap and not Trump? I don't get it.
I don't get it. You'd explain it to me, Kamala Harris. All know. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, first of all, let me just address the issue directly, because I spend a lot of time with our president, be it in the Oval Office, the Situation Room, you name it. We have a president in Joe Biden who is forward-thinking in a way that we've not seen in a long time. I mean, this is a president, many people...
Hey, look at him.
talked about taking on the issue of the climate crisis. We were talking about young voters. Because this president was relentless in saying we must do something about it, we are in the process of investing over $1 trillion in the climate crisis. This is a president who said we need to take on the issue of student loan debt, in spite of many members of Congress who fought against it. This is a president who said, everybody, including the person you were just talking about, kept talking about infrastructure week, which, by the way...
Okay, is he too old or not? Like, the question was about how old he is. Not about what he's done. Like, this was already their talking point. Remember, this is what Joe Biden kept on saying. Look at what I've done. Look at the accomplishments. Look at what we're doing. Look at what we're going to do. Am I too old? Look at all the stuff I've done. How can I be too old, right?
It never happened.
No, he did it.
Joe Biden, because of not only his knowledge, but his insistence on seeing things through. We have passed a bipartisan infrastructure law such that there are now 50 active projects throughout the country, infrastructure projects that are about upgrading our roads and bridges and airports.
Okay, is he too old? Because, this has nothing to do with that.
The Republicans who voted against it are taking credit for it.
But of course
those Republicans.
They are. But, Joe Biden, I've been in the Oval Office where heads of various countries, allies, have called literally to ask Joe Biden for his advice.
And, maybe a handout or two, maybe some, like a guy from Ukraine's always calling. Joe Biden, what can you advise me on this, and can you give me some more money?
Why are they doing it, Joy? Because they have nothing to run on.
Thank you.
They have nothing to run.
Okay, so you never saw this guy poop his pants, right? Like, just ridiculous. So right now you're Trump is running on your bad economy and your border crisis. At least those two things, right? I mean, they have at least those two things. The economy, and then also the people are done with the Ukrainian war and the way you guys handled the Israeli situation. And so all the other liberal type of things he's running, they have tons of things to talk about, right? So much so that Biden had one thing, which is abortion. That was his big issue, right? But you guys are getting killed on immigration and the economy. And so This is about him being senile and having dementia, which you've seen. You were around it, but you knew if you waited long enough, what happened was going to happen, and you were going to get shot at being president, even though you have yet to receive one vote in a primary or an election. You haven't received one vote for president. I don't know what your situation is when you won the Senate race. You probably ran pretty much unopposed and were handpicked.
That's right. Where's the plan? Right? And so that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think that it is, sadly, there is a push from so many people in that lane to
Okay, so these two rocket scientists, today is Thursday, August 8th. So I was making this video yesterday. It seems like some of my voice is different parts of the day. So you'll see a change in my voice here, but it might seem like a seamless transition, but I got interrupted and I couldn't get back to it yesterday afternoon. So let's pick up from where we left off with these two rocket scientists, where I left off.
They have nothing to run on.
Thank you.
They have nothing to run on.
That's right. They have no policy.
Where's the plan? Right? And so that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think that it is, sadly, there is a push from so many people in that lane to try to divide our country and distract from the real issues.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a piece of crap liar. And, not that Trump isn't, because Trump has this huge lie, epic lie, that he's perpetrated on his supporters using their patriotism, their fake patriotism, and their, make America great again, tough guy, WWE upbringing, and come out when, with a bloody ear and pump his fist when it was just all fake, right? Epic lie on his part, just a total piece of shit move on his part. But we now know, the American people know, that Joe Biden is senile. 70% American people, some of those Republicans changed their vote because they wanted to keep JoJo going, right? So it was probably even higher than that. The majority of American people saw that Joe Biden had cognitive issues. And it started years and years ago. Like, they elected him. They rigged it for him when he had cognitive issues. And these people have been covering for him because it's worse behind closed doors because, they prop him up as best they can when he goes into public and, there's more energy there. And so behind closed doors, it's much worse. And she knew this. This was 6 months ago when American people, 70% were saying that they think he has cognitive issues and he shouldn't be president now. And so she was caught lying because he was withdrawn since then. He didn't quit because he wanted to. He quit because he was forced out because he was too old. American people weren't going to vote for him. And they weren't going to vote for his record either. He had that disastrous debate performance, which he covered for him after that. So she's a lying piece of shit, right? And, I turned on the news this morning, I was eating breakfast, and they're talking about the energy around their rallies, which are epically fake, right? The rallies are really fake. You can just tell it's like a paid infomercial-based audience. I'll show you a moment where it kind of indicates, a lot of it's just staged, right?
And that we would have people who call themselves leaders who are actually focused on solutions that relate to the lives of everyday Americans instead of just slinging accusations that have no merit.
Okay, so the American people, you're telling me we're all blind and we can't see what we're seeing? There's no merit to Joe Biden having cognitive brain function issues? He's been demonstrating it since 2019 when she laughed at him, right?
Issue of black voters. I have a lifetime of experience with black voters. I've been one since I was 18.
Aha, good one, Corey.
Nobody on this stage should need a focus group to hear from African American voters.
So then he's going to talk about pot and stuff, and he's going to put Biden on the spot. Biden's going to...
Has been a war on black and brown people. And so let me just say this. With more African Americans under criminal supervision in America than all the slaves...
and this happened to Kamala, put black people in jail for pot, right? And for truancy, which we now know. I didn't know then.
Since 1850.
And so then he's going to come back here.
last election. Let me just give you this data example. We lost in Wisconsin because of a massive diminution, a lot of reasons, but there was a massive diminution in the African American vote. We need to have someone that can inspire, as Kamala said, to inspire African Americans to the polls at record numbers.
Thank you, Senator Booker. Vice President Biden, you can respond to that.
I'll be very brief. Number one, I think we should decriminalize marijuana, period. And I think anyone who has a record should be let out of jail, their records expunged.
He didn't do that, by the way.
Be completely zeroed out. But I do think it makes sense, based on data, that we should study what the long-term effects are for the use of marijuana. That's
Because we have no idea. Like, we don't know.
all it is. Number one, everybody gets out, record expunged. Secondly, I'm part of that Obama coalition. I come out of the black community in terms of my support. If you notice, I have more people supporting me in the black community that have announced for me because they know me. They know who I am. 3 former chairs of the Black Caucus. The only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate. A whole range of people.
So this is where he's going to get confused.
My point is...
That's not true. The other one is here.
Boom. This is JoJo having a senior moment. Like, his brain doesn't work, right? He's made a goof. He says, I said the first. No, you didn't say the first. You said the only. You just lied in front of everybody, right? Because your cognitive functioning is not there.
I said the first African-American elected. First African-American.
And she's laughing at him, his senility, which happened quite a bit. They were all laughing at him. He had these various moments. She also smiled when he said that he was punching back against, so I've shown you this so many times.
My point is one of the reasons I was picked to be vice.
And she gets this weird, she doesn't know how to stop laughing. But she's laughing at him. She knew he was senile, and they couldn't believe that he was beating them with the African-American vote. More African-Americans were wanting to vote for Biden than 2 black people. And so she was, they were stunned at how far gone this guy was even then. And now she's saying there's no evidence.
Madam Vice President, on that, I have to ask about border security. So 2023 was the biggest year for illegal border crossings, with resources stretched, fentanyl pouring into the country, cities pushed to the brink. Do you think this is a crisis, and what is being done to address the root causes?
Again, so this was her just saying they have nothing to run with, so they have to make it up that JoJo's too old. And then she asked about the border crisis, a border crisis.
Of our immigration problem.
I think the segue couldn't be more perfect because, listen, first of all, everyone
Joe Biden's senile, and that's what...
knows our immigration system is broken.
Right.
Okay. The first bill that we dropped, the first bill that we offered right after inauguration was to fix the immigration system. A comprehensive plan.
Okay, so this is that story about the Republicans blocking it. But, there's that. There's some truth to that. Trump got his people to, sabotage their border stuff. I don't know if it would have worked because it's, But this is the part, somebody sent me this piece here, then I found the whole interview.
Individual rights, and we try to unify the country instead of dividing the country.
Yeah. Well, Madam Vice President, thank you for being here.
Of course.
The president has made saving democracy the center of his campaign, and many of us, I think every one of us at this table understands the damage and the fear of January 6th and all that happened. But it's been
It's a horrible day. It's one of the worst days in democracy history.
years since then, and a lot of minds are already made up. Attacks on Trump are not moving the needle. In fact, 91 indictments are not moving the needle. Voters want to hear about issues affecting their lives, like the economy and the border. Should the campaign be pivoting on its messaging?
So there's no doubt that one of the first issues that anyone will think of is the issue they think of when they're at their kitchen table trying to pay their bills, which is how is the economy treating them? So there's no question whatsoever that...
See, they can talk about how the Republicans sabotaged them on the border. And that's not going to work either because they sabotaged Trump on the economy because of COVID, right? They baited Trump into closing down the economy. They pushed COVID. But they really can't do anything with the economy, right? They can't blame Trump for the economy. They do, but they really can't because, it's been 4 years.
that is an important issue, which we have been in the process of addressing, and we still need to do more. I would not separate that from the issue of what is at stake in terms of hard democracy. And frankly, I think most people don't think of it in the context of democracy as much as freedom. The freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body. The freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. The freedom to be able to be free from gun violence. These are fundamental freedoms that are at stake right now. The freedom to have access to the ballot. I travel our country.
So she tried to pivot and get away from talking about the economy. She has nothing to say about the economy or how to fix it. She started talking about shit that, works for them. Right? Of course, abortion being their big issue. Their number one selling point. Like, think about that, because abortion's murder. Like, I'm not a Roe v. Wade person. I'm not a pro-life person. I am a reality-based person. And life begins at conception, right? That's by every measurable standard. By spirituals, by the presence of a soul. You need a soul to create a life. And also by science, in terms of the egg of the female and the sperm of the man coming together to create a third person, right? As soon as the sperm fertilizes the egg, that's a new life. That's when life begins. Obviously, it's obvious. Everybody should say, yeah, that makes sense. So then, if it's a human life, which it is, then that's murder, right? You're murdering a fetus. A fetus is the start of the process, right? You go through these, fetus, the zygote, these various types of, life forms that are all part of the human experience. And that's when, eventually it becomes a baby and is born. And during that whole process, it's a human being, right? It's not a cancer, it's a human life.
And I have been in states that have banned access to reproductive freedom.
Okay, so that she didn't ask about those things. She didn't ask about abortion. She asked about the economy, and you gave no answer, right? Because she's not doing that. Okay, so then this happened yesterday as well.
The chants that were familiar from Donald Trump in 2016, the lock her up chants, and now it is a lock him up chant whenever they are talking about Trump's crimes, the fact that he's a convicted felon. But how Harris handled this moment really stood out to me. She's done this 3 times now. Watch this.
Hold on. You know what? Here, hold on. Here's the thing. The courts are going to handle that. We're going to beat them in November.
So that's the Obama cadence.
Hold on. You know what? The courts are going to handle that part of it. What we're going to do is beat them in November. Hold on. This campaign, our campaign, is not just a fight against Donald Trump.
She has serious old neck stuff going on here.
Our campaign, this campaign, is a fight for the future.
Is that how she should be handling that? Do you think that's the right move?
I'll tell you.
Boom, she just handles it really well. Okay, so I'm editing here. I want to add this because it's the whole point. I missed it here. What they're doing here is they are having their shills out in the audience chant, lock her up, lock him up, right? And she has this pre-staged thing like Tim Walz did with the medical thing. Hold on now. We're going to beat him in November, right? This is the whole thing. It's a bit, right? They have a bit. And to do it, they have to have people shouting to lock him up. So it's just, she's so staged and fake. Okay, let's get back to it here. So this was, they bait and switched me with they didn't have this in that CNN clip, even though it said that they did. So I was looking for this clip. I saw it a bunch of times on my phone yesterday. It was being recommended. And then I looked for it. CNN had it in the title, but they didn't show the clip, which is classic CNN. But here.
As we move our nation forward, Donald Trump intends to take our nation backward. Just look at his Project 2025 agenda. Project 2025.
Okay, so they got hecklers, and I'm going to show you how the hecklers are fake, right? So think about this staged moment. See, it's all staged and just complete bullshit, all this stuff, like the Trump shooting, all these things, right? So they're saying, they're saying negative things to Kamala. She's got hecklers. And so then her paid crowd shouts the hecklers down. There's people who start the Kamala chant, right? There's paid people in the audio, professional infomercial audience.
And please do check out Project 2025. Because I'm telling you, it is a plan. It is a plan to weaken America's middle class. Project 2025, if he is elected.
It's all good. It's not all good. It's all good.
I'm here because we believe in democracy. Everyone's voice matters, but I am speaking now. I am speaking now. So Project 2025, look, if he is elected, Donald Trump intends to give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations. He intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. He intends to surrender our fight against the climate crisis, and he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that, otherwise I'm speaking.
So here's the moment, right? Because she's talking about 2025 thing here. Okay, so I had to find the whole speech because they cut it off, and this is the most important part. So 13 minutes into the speech, the Trump people start chanting, right? Then Kamala has that big moment right when she's talking about 2025. Look at it, she's got an attitude. We will not go back. These are all like stage chants, right?
And again, understand, Donald Trump intends to end the Affordable Care Act and take us back to a time when insurance companies had the...
So, miraculously, the protesters, which were really loud, dies down. Like, so they waited for 13 minutes before they attacked her, right? And then she has her moment where she's talking about 2025. So that clip went viral. Like, it was, I've seen it numerous times. They showed it on mainstream media a bunch of times, right? So this clip went viral. And she got to talk about 2025 and people hearing it. And then she put down these hecklers and all this stuff about how she schooled these hecklers, right? It's a staged moment. These were prepared lines. You can see by the way she delivered them, the way that the chants went, like the chants are all there. You know, first they say Kamala, then they say, we won't go back, all these things, right? This is all staged. This is all stagecraft.
Power to deny people with pre-existing conditions.
We all remember what that looked like. And we're not going back. We're not going.
Right? So, like, you go forward here.
Basically just told the former president, who has been convicted of fraud.
Where are the hecklers now? Did they remove them, or were they part of a staged protest? It helped her because she's having these viral moments, and there's all this enthusiasm in her crowds, right? Like I said, I turned on MSNBC this morning, and they're talking about how her crowds are all enthusiastic, and it's because she represents America, because of all the various diverse ethnic groups. It was a Hispanic woman talking about how Kamala represents all these various diverse ethnic groups in the Democratic Party. That's why there's so much enthusiasm. Nobody likes this bitch, right? Like, they just don't like her. And so, and that's going to come out as time goes by, right? And it's just all lies. And, you know, not that Trump is as big a liar, or, you know, he's better at it, certainly better at it than she is. But they're just all liars, right? So here's this. That's Jeff Shapiro, also known as Josh Shapiro. C-SPAN called him Jeff Shapiro. This is Genocide Josh, and they're in Pennsylvania, right? And
honesty. She has served with dignity, and every step of the way, she's broken barriers to serve all of us.
So he's copied Obama's cadence, right?
And it is so good to be here with your incredible governor, Josh Shapiro.
Woo! So everyone says that Josh Shapiro's speech was much better than their speeches, right? He's getting lots of love for his speech. But more importantly, why would they come to Philadelphia to announce this guy who's from Minnesota? Why wouldn't she go to Minnesota and they have a rally for him in Minnesota? Why would Josh Shapiro, the guy that was supposed to be she was going to pick Josh Shapiro. When I heard that she was going to announce in Philadelphia, well, the obvious choice was Josh Shapiro. Why would she come to Josh Shapiro's state and disrespect him by choosing this guy, right? Why would she announce in Philadelphia when this guy's from Minnesota? It, like, makes no sense. It's just completely a fail here. She was going to pick Josh, but it was so controversial, and they have to bring in the young people vote, and, you know, they would call him Genocide Josh, and they didn't want to go into the convention with some divided aspects of it. And now they're talking about her being anti-Semitic, like that's what, you know, Trump people are saying, because that's, of course, the, you know, now an attacking point. And so, you know, appeasing all these anti-Semites that have problems with Palestinian children being killed, right? And so, like, Josh Shapiro was her pick, and he was the better pick, the more exciting pick. He's got the Obama cadence. He rocked it at this speech. Why would he give a speech when he was supposed to be here and be this guy, right? And so, like, there's just epic failure here, left and right. And it's just, you know, an absolute joke, right? The whole thing's a joke. So then this guy comes to Air Force Two. He waits at the airport and stalks Kamala, who wanted no part of a confrontation.
Some reporters and hasn't for 17. Covering the vice president here. I figured I'd come by and one, just get a good look at the plane, because hopefully it's going to be my plane in a few months. But I also thought you guys might get lonely because the vice president doesn't answer questions from reporters.
It's going to be your plane?
And hasn't for 17 days.
No, so she hasn't answered questions from reporters for 17 days. And he tried to confront her at the airport. So, like, this is where this thing's going. And this is just fake and staged, and Kamala not coming out. They were there, her and Walz, but they didn't, you know, respond and connect with them. So this is just, like, going to be a shit show, which will be at least funny. So this came up when I was searching for the View thing, right? Remember her, Meghan McCain's? She gets really hangry. And she asks Kamala Harris about defunding the police.
A defunding of the police.
And then Kamala Harris says this.
So
So, Megan, I think that a big part of this conversation really is about reimagining how we do public safety in America, which I support, which is this. We have confused the idea that to achieve safety, you put more cops on the street instead of...
You mean, for someone who wanted to arrest parents for not, for truancy, like that takes more police, right? Like you're gonna, like you're expanding the role of the police, right?
Understanding to achieve safe and healthy communities, you put more resources into the public education system of those communities, into affordable housing, into home ownership, into access to capital for small businesses, access to health care regardless of how much money people have. That's how you achieve safe and healthy communities. And so we really do need to understand and reimagine what and how we can actually make and help make communities safe. Because here's the bottom line.
What's the bottom line, Kamala? Tell us about it. What's that bottom line?
Contrast, many communities which have a heavy presence of police to middle and upper middle class suburbs in America. You will not see that presence of police. But what you will see families who have an income that allows them to get through the end of the month. You will see good public schools.
Yeah, well, because there's haves and have-nots. And neither one of you guys is producing a plan that would get rid of the haves and have-not system. Because there isn't one, right? It doesn't exist. And so as long as there's have-nots, there has to be some people who are in poverty. There has to be lots of people. There have to be a lot more poor people than rich people to have the kind of economic system we have, right? So, of course, the wealthy people are going to be less likely to commit crimes and be in a better situation because they pump drugs into the poor communities and people are living desperate lives. And so, but you can't fix that. Like, don't pretend that you can elevate those people because the only way to elevate those people is create, get rid of the wealthiest people. You can't have billionaires. When you have billionaires, you're going to have lots of poor people. It's just how a system works. Rich people are only rich based on comparing them to poor people, right? You're rich based on, it's like you have more. To be rich, you have to have more than other people, right? It's about having a lot more money than other people, right?
You'll see people who have access to health care and can afford it. You will see people who have jobs. And so this has to be the conversation, which is...
She's trying to back out of her saying to fund the police that she was for it. Which now, like this guy, they burned down Minneapolis, which is a beautiful city. I went there years and years ago. They were like scraping gum off the sidewalk, like it was a pristine city. And now, not so much. And so, this thing's turned into a real mess and shit show here. Okay, so from MSNBC, I'm speaking now. Harris responds after Michigan rally interrupted by pro-Palestinian protesters, right? So they waited, like I said, halfway through. It says here, about halfway through the vice president's remarks, roughly a dozen protesters begin to chant, "Kamala, Kamala, you can't hide. We won't vote for your genocide." Trump is way worse on Palestine than Kamala is in Biden, but that is whatever. Biden was the president under this thing. And so that's how this thing's going. But the fact that they waited halfway through, and she was just starting to talk about 2025, right? And when she's talking about 2025, she wants to get that out there. And so when people look at this clip, they'll hear 2025 and the way she handled it. And it was like, I showed you how staged it was. And then miraculously, the protesters disappeared, right? If they took them out, they took them out, whatever, I don't know. Either way, like it looks like she shouted them down, and it was clearly rigged for her to do that, right? So there's that. Cult 45, kneel down to your all savior. Kneel down to you all savior. I almost died for your sins. It's a wonderful thing here, right? That's classic Trump's right there, right? That's classic Trump's. like the big lie here is this is the big lie. Okay, so I'm editing here. This is probably going to be up on Saturday. This is Friday, August 9th. And so the title of this video is going to be Tampon Tim versus Maxipad Donald. Because I got all these comments. So I was editing and I'm reading through the comments. Everyone's calling him Tampon Tim. And I'm like, what the F is that about, right? So I looked it up, and Tim Walz decided to put tampons in not only the girls' bathrooms, but the boys' bathrooms. And the Republican politicians in the great state of Minnesota tried to block it, but they couldn't. They tried to stop the bleeding. And they couldn't. So he was dubbed Tampon Tim, and then some famous Republican person said, oh my God, she nominated Tampon Tim, which ties him to the liberal stuff that nobody likes, this stuff with the silly things, right? But then I'm like, well, what about Maxipad Donald? Because he strapped a Maxipad on his ear, and there was nothing there, right? He didn't have he didn't have it. So here he is being Maxipad Donald and Tampon Tim and all of it, right? So this is classic battle between these two, the bruisers. So they're still trying to milk this thing, right? But all the energy and the attention's on Kamala right now because her VP pick. She's going to have the convention, which isn't good for Kamala, right? And Trump doesn't like it, but it's good for him. But he's still doing this stuff here.
Artist with a beautiful painting, Art Lanta. Where is Art? Oh, wow.
They're having these weird glitches here.
That is beautiful. I wasn't going to bring him up. Then I saw the painting. I said, come on up, because maybe he'll give it to me. Wow. Come on up. That's okay.
You can't pay for it? You're a billionaire. Look, it's very sparkly. Fight, fight, fight.
Is that good?
Woo! Fight, 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 fight.
All right, thank you very much. Wow, that's fantastic.
Woo! Trump signing his fake painting of his fake shooting and his fight moment.
Wow. Whoa.
So that's, I don't know why their video stuff they're doing on Forbes. I mean, I don't know what's going on there. They can't sync up the lips, and they're having all these glitch outs. But like, no one's paying attention to Trump. But every rally. Remember, he said he wasn't going to talk about the shooting after the convention because it's just so painful. It's so painful. I don't think I can talk about it anymore. He talks about it every time he goes out. It's a constant thing. It's a big theme, and it's just they're just all liars and fake.
Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has signed the Protect Reproductive Options, or PRO Act, into law today. It establishes reproductive freedom as a fundamental right for every Minnesotan. More than 100 lawmakers joined the governor as he signed that bill.
So to Minnesotans, know that your access to reproductive health and your right to make your own health care decisions are preserved and protected. And because of this law, that won't change with the political winds or the makeup of the Supreme Court. This is a bill for Minnesotans today and all future generations.
The governor said today, last November, Minnesotans spoke loud and clear. They want
change with the political.
Okay, so this is a winning issue for the Democrats, but he was, couldn't wait to sign in a law for the complete 9-month access to abortion. So that's one of the states that has it. And again, it's a winning issue, but it's the murder of fetuses and, embryos and children and, babies and things like this, right? The various stages, because we all know what it is, right? Like, they pretend they don't know what it is. It's murder of children, right? So regardless of the laws or the necessity or all the unwanted aspect of children and, these kids growing up in miserable lives and, all the things, all the arguments for and against it, comes down to when does life begin? Tim Walz hits J.D. Vance with eye-dropping couch burn. You got him with the couch burn.
And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy.
The guy, I can't wait to debate the guy. I can't wait to debate the guy. That guy. Woo! Look at him. He's like Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers. So this is Steve Ballmer, the owner of the Clippers, Los Angeles Clippers basketball team, and former guy who worked with Bill Gates at Microsoft. He's worth $20 billion. And he's basically the same guy, right? He loves to dance. He loves to cheer. He gets wild, gets jiggy with it. There's going to be a dunk here. This guy's going to have a dunk. Look at Steve Clipper. He's always dancing around. You see him? He was here. He's right here. He's wearing a mask, right? So he does that throughout the game.
I tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy.
Woo! Woo! That was incredible what you just said. You're debating and we can't wait. Woo!
That is if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So.
He's a coucher. He showed up at the airport. You guys didn't want to be part of him. Woo. Look at him. These are canned. This is bad. And so it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. So what they're doing here is Kamala isn't very likable. And she just doesn't have the mass appeal. She doesn't have they needed somebody as a vice president to make her pop. It's going to be a tough road to get a woman elected. Just in general. And specifically someone, if it's going to be a person that's going to set, achieve something historically. She's received 0 votes for president. She was in no primaries. She did nothing, right? And so they're trying to make this guy pop and like he's some kind of, blue-collar-ish, man of the people, served in the military. I guess his military record is being questioned. He'd had to apologize for, exaggerating on his military record or whatever, National Guard service or whatever he did. And so, but, AKA Joe Magoo, but he's the Joe Magoo for her. Like, she's not likable. She's not going to appeal to this group of white, conservative, middle of the road, blue-collar worker kind of people, right? But this guy, school teacher, kind of, the suburban dad, right? The conservative suburban dad. The problem is he's got lots of liberal stuff going on, right? And, the internet's great because everything you've done is going to come back up because people are going to comb through everything available on the internet no matter how bad you try to scrub it. And he's a last-minute substitute. They wanted to go with the more dynamic Josh Shapiro, but he got genocided Joshist. He got genocided Joshed. And he, so it's just wonderful the way this is playing out. And, Trump wins. Whoever wins, it's going to be a disaster. They're going to handpick the winner here, like they always do, but specifically now. I can't imagine they're going to handpick Kamala. I don't think they ever had Kamala. She'll, be just like Joe Biden. She'll give them whatever they want. But Trump gives them so much more. But we'll see, Right now, it looks like they're leaning towards Trump. You never know what they're going to do. That's why this is interesting. Not like it's real, but like it's a good story. It's a good, they've woven together a good narrative between Tampon Tim versus Maxipad Donald, right?
Okay, so,
What do you mean I can't have any alcohol?
okay, well, I'll tell you. Okay, the time's 20 to 3, 14:40. I'm arresting you on suspicion of improper use of the electronic communications network. Under
What?
127 of the Communications Act, okay? So you do not have to say that it may harm your defence if you don't mention one question, something which you later on.
So this guy's getting arrested in England for posting something on social media.
In court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. Do you understand that?
So I'm actually being
You're
arrested.
going to be arrested, okay?
Right,
So you
and-
got to the police station.
Right.
Ask you, okay, this is in relation to some comments that you've made on a Facebook page.
So he made some comments on a Facebook page, and they're arresting for the comments. Tim Walz, I showed you that, right? He showed the very beginning of this thing.
Oh, really? Oh, it's a Facebook crime, is it?
Okay.
Right.
So we need to ask you some questions about that.
Right.
Have you got anything in your pockets,
Go ahead, pull out your rubber gloves.
I got my keys. No, that's about it, I think. Keys.
So, anyone who's been arrested, we can search them under Section 32 of the Basic Criminal Act.
Right.
That's for dangerous items.
Hey, you said I was going to be arrested under some what information? I'm going to be arrested for posting on Facebook.
Made some comments that are offensive, obscene, and people have made a complaint about that, and it's
And can you tell me what this comment was?
Okay, well, we'll do that when we interview.
All right. And so, what am I going to be locked up for the night, or?
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Just get in and out after we anally probe you. These rubber gloves, because you were talking shit on Facebook. The French court ordered 5G antenna switched off as a farmer was experiencing adverse effects with his cows. Milk production decreased 15 to 20%, and 40% of his cows died. So, there's that. Homeless dude outside a tattoo shop shows off all his prison tattoos.
Whole freaking arm, right? I got tattoo tour, bow, positive vibes, secret message, little heart. This is, I was reading a text that my friend sent me. This says one day at a time, little rainbow. We got a little star with sunglasses, little heart. This is a little dude that's overthinking, which is me. This Uno reverse, I call it what goes around comes around, but people tell me it's just Uno reverse. Little muscle, little diamond, this little heart. I think this little heart right here is my favorite.
It's a real heart. That was not like a theory, like a caricature of a heart. It was like an actual physical heart. Okay, so today is, I don't know, the 9th of August on Friday. And I'm editing, and I had a good couple of days of watching the Olympics where I enjoyed some of the stuff. Most of it had just been me kind of covering it because it's the last Olympics or whatever, I have some connection to it. Track and field to me is the real kind of Olympic stuff because, it's track and field. It's the original Olympics, I think, in Greece were mostly track and field type events, which makes sense, right? And this guy, Noah Lyles, started wearing a mask for no reason. Like, he was walking around wearing a mask, and I'm like, Jesus, are we going back to that, right? And he's an obnoxious person. This is him interviewing after he got the bronze. Here's his Instagram page. He's got his own little cartoon character of himself. And it shows him holding up the bronze. Here's his statue of himself outside the stadium. And so the guy pretty much pissed everybody off. He talked shit to his teammates. He bragged in a way, but he's like a poser. Like, he's a fake kind of... He was trying to, make himself pop by saying things that were kind of, being really braggadocious and, arrogant and all these things, right? Over-the-top celebrations, but it was all acted, staged to bring attention to himself. He was doing a lot of commercials. And he talked about how he was going to wipe everybody out in the 200. He won the 100-yard dash here. Here he is here showing off. And he thought he lost. There was a guy, I think, from Jamaica. And he won by no time at all. They had the exact same time, but in the photo finish after the race everyone thought the other guy had won. He thought the other guy had won. The photo finish showed he won, right? And so he kind of underperformed, but he, went around and he said, America, I told you I got this thing. He did to the camera. And he was, pretty obnoxious, right? And here he is with this cartoon thing. And so he had said that the, most important sports were individual sports and track and field, and they were better than team sports. So like all these professional athletes, disliked the guy. And he kind of systematically pissed everybody off. And then he got his ass kicked in the 200 meter, which he promised he was going to win. Kind of guaranteed it, right? And so he, one of them was his teammate. The other guy was some guy from some country in Africa that hadn't won a medal in years. And then after the race, they said there was rumors that he had COVID. So he got down on one knee and he started to, first he hugged this guy when he had COVID, right? And that's why he was wearing a mask after the thing. And he went down on one knee and he was he asked for water. And they brought him over and he made a big deal. It was completely posed and acted and fake. And, he was making a big deal of it. And they they said that he's been a lifelong asthmatic and he was having trouble breathing. And they got him some water and was sitting there. And first, I want to thank God for getting me through the entire Olympics. Second, I want to congratulate this guy, these guys who beat him, everyone else on the amazing Olympic 200 front five. And finally, I want to thank everyone for supporting my messages. This will be the end of my 2024 Olympic. It's not the Olympic I dreamed of, but it's left me with so much joy in my heart. Hope everyone enjoyed the show, whether you were rooting for me or against me. You have to admit you watched me, didn't you? See you next time. And then they put him in some kind of weird wheelchair, and they wheeled him out. And they were going to put these straps on him, and he wouldn't let him. He was like he was trying to have some sort of dignity. But apparently he had a mild version of COVID, and didn't stop him from hugging everybody and competing. But they made him wear a mask and or he chose to or whatever. It was just weird. Don't they, And when you wear a mask, for me, I had these very breathable masks and I wore a mask, I would get an asthmatic response after about 10 minutes. It would make my lungs burn and I was like, wow, how do people do this all day, right? So I never understood it. But, he said he had COVID and, or whatever it was caused him to, lose the race or whatever. It was so icky. And he's so obnoxious. But, so that was kind of great because the guy underperformed. At the same time, the American basketball team had an epic win in a game, which I'll get to in a bit, which, one of the things he criticized was how much attention the basketball players were getting, where he had he underperformed. So the previous night, this guy, Quincy Hall, he gutted out a 400-meter performance where, I was shocked that he won. He was way behind in the race, and he just, he just powered through at the end, and he won the race. And then he did a snow angel, and he had this incredible gold grill. It was just an awesome moment. He was just, he came from behind to win the thing. He dogged it. He just, just whatever. And then he did a snow angel, and then he gave an epic interview with the guy. If you can go watch the interview, it's hilarious. He's just the opposite of the other guy. Like he just made it happen. There's his gold grill there. And like having a gold, if you're going to have a grill, like having a big gold grill, like if you're going to be a jewelry person, which I'm not, but it was, in fact, like it was one of the things where I showed my wife, like the whole interview and the whole thing, right? It was just an amazing race. And I think it was before that, they had this 1,500-meter race. And like they were showing these this European guys, this guy's from Norway, this guy's from England. And I could tell they didn't like each other. And I fast forwarded, because, I just fast forward through the stuff, because, I'm just sort of kind of watching it and seeing if anything's interesting. But I went back and watched this, and it was hilarious. It was an introduction to the race, and this guy's having bad blood. So what I was going to do was fast forward to the end of the race and see who won. Like that's how I used. But I said, all right, I'm going to watch this because it looks like it's going to be like, contentious, right? And it was. This guy who had frosted hair tips when he had won the 1,500 meter before. This guy had these frosted tips in his hair, right? And he was from Norway, and he's wicked obnoxious. He was bragging. He's saying that most people don't have the balls to be who they are, or have the confidence. He said these words, and he was like really cocky, obnoxious. He got beat by this guy in some European thing, and from Great Britain, and he said, "Well, I just had a bad race, and I'm still like the best, and he's just the next man up." And the two guys just started talking shit to each other, like they had this contentious relationship, and it was great, like build up to the race. And so this guy from Norway went out, and he was just sprinted, like he ran a very fast pace, thinking he was going to tire everybody out, wear them down, like he's just the best runner. And he got caught by this guy who he hates, who passed him. And this is a little American hippie-looking dude. And this dude here, another American guy, he got gold and he got bronze. This guy got silver. This guy got nothing. And he was completely humbled. This guy just beat him at the end. And so it was a kind of an epic race, given the fact that it was so contentious. Here's the finish of the race here, right? But I thoroughly enjoyed it because, like, if I hadn't seen these guys talking shit to each other, it wouldn't nearly be as enjoyable. But this guy, was really obnoxious, and he had won, before. And he said he was like the greatest runner and just really obnoxious like the other guy. And so, like, when somebody comes out like that and they don't deliver, it's hilarious. Just like with Noah Lyles. And so the other thing was the men's basketball game yesterday. I started watching it in the afternoon. And I had sort of a little bit of a headache yesterday, like from the day before. I had one of those auras. And the Serbian team, which is led by this guy who's like the best basketball player in the world right now, Nikola Jokic. But his teammates were just hitting threes out of their ass. I mean, they were just like hitting three-point baskets one after another. And if the Americans lost, this was like the second coming of the dream team. And, the rest of the world's catching up to them, right? Where they're playing against now NBA players and NBA stars on these other teams. In the earlier game, France versus Germany, it seemed like France got some more calls. They played a much better game than they did against Japan, where they stole that game. But they seemed like they were, like, Germany was being, like, sort of manhandled a little bit. Like France was able to play more physical because it's a home game, for them. But this game was epic. And the Americans came back in the fourth quarter and outscored them to win the game. And it came down the stretch. Steph Curry had a fucking amazing game in terms of three-point shooting and scoring. And this guy, Joel Embiid, I don't know if there's a picture of him, who sucked the whole Olympics. People are like, why is he even on the team? He's like, he just got off an injury. He's not playing very well. But he played great. Like it was, which was like kind of totally necessary because the Serbian team just played like the best game. This guy here, Joel Embiid, who's from, and he was booed in France because he's from Cameroon, which is a French colony in Africa. And he was supposed to play for the French team, and at the last minute he decided to play for the Americans. So he was regularly booed by the French audience, but they started cheering him because he was just, like, he just egged them on and whatever, and they just, he won them over. But the American basketball team played an amazing fourth quarter, but the Serbians were, like, they were just hitting every shot. Like, they hit every three-pointer they had. Like, it was crazy. At one point, they were up by, like, almost 20 points. Which, like, it was, and the Americans were starting to panic and were playing tight, and it was kind of a great game. So, yeah, like, those were things that I watched, like, the whole game from the beginning to the end. Like, I didn't, I was going to go back and do some work, and, I was going to edit this video and things. But I was like, this is like a really great basketball game. And like, if the Americans lost, it would have been one of the biggest, like, epic defeat. I don't like necessarily root for the Americans. Oftentimes I don't because, they're Americans. And, there's like other small little countries that, don't have the resources and whatever it is, right? There's a basketball team that played from South Sudan. It's only been a country since 2011, so it's like, a 12-year-old country or whatever, a 13-year-old country. And they don't even have an indoor gym in the whole country. And they played the Americans to a 2-point game in a sort of a preliminary, like, exhibition thing before the Olympics. And so, like, they've had a really good team for, like, having no facilities and no budget and no anything. But anyways, like I said, mostly up until this point, I hadn't really enjoyed the Olympics. It was more like, I was watching it just to cover it here, and a lot of it was just failure. But there are some moments there, which there always going to be. There's always going to be some great sports moments. But anyhow, so there was that. So this is the one I really want to get to. Again, this is Thursday, August 8th. I'm going to be making more of this video, editing it at least tomorrow and probably adding things to it, but I'm going to put this at the end. And I want to do a voiceover. It has to do with the beginning when I was talking about death and also talking about the deception and lies and just the hypocrisy of everything. Let's start here.
The age-old question, how did the Egyptians build the pyramids?
Well, how do you not know this, right? How did they build the pyramids? The pyramids are more technologically advanced than anything that we could do. This is mainstream media admitting it, right? And so there's only one explanation, and that was people who were more technologically advanced built the pyramid, right? Not primitive people that we say were there 5,000 years ago. There was advanced civilizations that were building things that we have no idea how to build now and could not replicate them, right?
Perplexing historians all the way back to ancient Greece, stumping Napoleon's archaeologists, and becoming the butt of jokes today.
Did this start at the top and work down, or start at the bottom and work up?
Although we're fairly sure they started at the bottom, we still don't know exactly how they did it.
They don't know. They don't have a clue. There's no, there's nothing they have. And with all the machinery that we have, right? And you think about these $1 million backhoes and cranes and bulldozers. I mean, some of these incredible machines that we have, right? We could not replicate these things today. We wouldn't even know how to go about it, right? We could never, build anything, cut the rocks the way they were. I mean, the whole thing.
There are all kinds of theories, ramps, cranes, and yes, aliens.
Probably extraterrestrials.
Now we're getting a new potential answer, one a little more grounded in reality.
Boom. Grounded in reality. And so it's aliens. I mean, at least advanced civilization, and more than likely, advanced civilization would involve space travel, right? Let's watch a little bit more and I'll come back to that.
Water. Researchers just published a study
They build it with water.
Suggesting that hydraulic force could have helped build the step pyramid for Pharaoh Djoser.
Could have. It could have. Like, why even put this out there? It's a possibility.
Than 4,600 years ago. It's the oldest of the 7 monumental pyramids in Egypt and was at the time the largest structure, coming in at 204 feet. That's King or Pharaoh LeBron James stacked head to toe more than 30 times. Some of those stones weighing more than 600 pounds. The researchers now say the internal architecture of the pyramid supports a new theory, a hydraulic lift. A nearby structure might have functioned as a dam. Water could have flowed into shafts inside the pyramid that would have raised some sort of float carrying the stones, like a water elevator. They say the discovery represents a significant leap in our comprehension of ancient Egyptian engineering.
Okay, so this is a small-ass pyramid, and they have this hypothesis that this could have been built that way. Which, again, they don't even have a clue on how these things are built. They're just throwing shit against the wall and hoping that it comes out, right? And so let's talk about the aliens. So for this piece of shit to say, that we have theories that are more reality-based. They've made it ridiculous to believe in aliens, which they all believe in. The people that run this system know that there was extraterrestrials because they've been burying information about it, and there's a lot of information out there. So I have a folder that has all the giants in it, has all the aliens, all these things, right? Which you'll see, I've made a video clip of all the images that I have, and there's plenty more out there. Like, this isn't something that I've covered extensively, but the biggest evidence is that in cultures all around the world, Aboriginal cultures, there was not only cave paintings and artwork and things that were showing extraterrestrials, but there were stories about space people. Extensive stories, and stories about giants as well. And so these things exist. I mean, there's stories of giants, the Nephilim in the Bible, right? What do you think? They just made that shit up, right? And so there used to be giants not that long ago, and there's still giants now. There's 7-footers, 8-foot people, which is, when you see somebody that big, you're like, oh, that's like a giant, right? There's just a different, it's some of the leftover DNA. Also, little people. Why do you think there's giants and little people? What do you think these anomalies are based in? Where this genetics come from? Such extremes, where you have 3 feet, adult people 3 feet tall, and you have 8 feet tall, right? And you see tall people all the time, 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", right? Manute Bol came to my college. He was 7'7", 7'8". And as soon as he walked on the court, it was like, you're going to the circus or something. Like, it was like you couldn't believe a person's that tall. Like, guys I played basketball against that were 6'7", 6'8", there was one guy who was 6'7", 6'8". And it was hard for me to get my shot over the guy because he was so tall, when I played against him. And I'm watching him play against this guy, Manute Bol, who blocked his jump shot from like 10 feet away. And there's just people who are really big and people who are really small. And so that's that giant part. But in terms of extraterrestrials, there's all this stories, these, so-called myths that have been around for thousands of years in these cultures. And then all the paintings and things that go with it. And then whatever other evidence that's out there. And then the evidence they've hidden. So there's been space people here. There's been technologically advanced civilizations that are beyond our ability to comprehend, and we're pretty technologically advanced, right? And even with our computers, like AI bots can't figure out how they built the pyramids. With all our knowledge on architecture, if you put all that knowledge into a database and then have one of these, AI bots analyze it, they can't figure out how the pyramids were built. They're coming up with theories, right? They're at the theory point. Like, they can't even postulate, there's just maybe it's this, maybe it's that kind of thing, right? Just think about it. Like, that's, amazing. And that's just the pyramids. And there are pyramids all over the world. So you can explain how the pyramids were built, which they can't. But how are you going to explain how different cultures around the world built pyramids? These pyramidal structures are everywhere on the planet. And there's a reason for it. Like, they're interplanetary relay stations, according to the Whispers of the Brighter World messages, that also talked about giants and extraterrestrials in there. And they were built by these ancient civilizations, right? These are these channeled messages from this French woman who did the Sagemark system, who was the world's greatest medium, as there's like 20,000 of these messages. Sunday, March 4th, 2001, 8 a.m. The Earth's history is both ancient and rich. It had some advanced civilizations, extraterrestrials as you call them, came to establish exploration sites and to build interplanetary relay stations. Some of them survived, even though not having their primary usefulness anymore. The pyramids belong to them. Many things are said and written about them. They still play an important role energy-wise. Revelations on this point will bring a new enlightenment of men of the future ages. This time has not yet come. Could they really understand all the subtleties of this system? They should at least start admitting that life exists on the planets of the solar system, and beyond. He means etheric life in the solar system. Like there's soul life, there's energetic beings in the various planets and the moon and things. They should at least admit that life exists on the planets of the solar system and beyond. It will really be necessary to hit hard so that they can accept this principle. A massive invasion will occur. We already mentioned that possibility, which alone will put an end to the wanderings of all forms of science. So there's going to be a massive invasion. It's talked about in a few other places. Because human beings are putting a risk. Well, here, the whole picture will need revising. These beings will bring an extraordinary knowledge that will leave the poor earthlings stupefied with their pompous ideas on everything, most of which are wrong or worthless. Those beings will come in order to protect the universal balance from man's misconduct, as well as from the huge risks that are running with this so-called progress, which is alarming in many aspects. Babaji, who was the second master of the Sajmark system. And so, that's, a good explanation that these pyramids, and there's another Whispers that talks about them, that they mapped out the world. And so if you're coming from if you're coming from another galaxy traveling by space and you stop at this planet, it's a big planet. How are you going to navigate around it, right? Whatever their computer technology would be. And so they had these interplanetary relay stations in places at pivotal points around the planet, right? And so, there's lots of architectural and other things that have been found, architectural. There's other, architecture and other things that have been found that are beyond human beings' comprehension. But the people who run the planet, the people I call the controllers, have this knowledge. And they've buried it and hidden it from people for a lot of reasons. Of course, religion would have a hard time getting people to, believe in them if there is superior beings out there. Of course, like lots of Christians will say, they're demonic, extraterrestrials are demonic or whatever, because that's what they got to believe, because it doesn't fit with the bullshit stuff that they've been told about Jesus and so forth, because this is the stuff that they did to dumb down people. But not knowing your true history, and that there was slaves that were made, out of test tubes, and there was the fusing of the genomes and things. I've talked about this in past videos. All this evidence that shows that the Earth, the people that we are today, because there are human beings that used to live thousands of years here. There are people on this planet that used to live, 5,000, 10,000 years, at least hundreds of years, right? And then there was slaves that were made, and that's what we all are now, a product of that genetic experiment that was shortened their lifespan. If you remember from the Blade Runner movie, the slaves only lived like 4 or 5 years, the clones, because they were superior physically and intellectually in some ways. And so it would stop them from rebelling, because they wouldn't live that long. They would only live a short period of time, which makes sense because, you're limited in your ability to challenge. Like, how can you, if you had people that lived 1,000 years versus people who live less than 100, how would the people that live less than 100 ever challenge those people that lived a much longer time, right? And so, all these things. But they know that this stuff is true. And for this guy to come out and say more reality-based, if something's so far technologically advanced than your civilization is able to produce or even understand, then it's done by higher developed people. It's not done by more primitive people, right? These more primitive people built something we could never build. Well, that makes no sense at all. They had to be more technologically advanced than us and superior in various ways. It makes complete sense. There's no other explanation for it. And if there is evidence of extraterrestrial presence in space travel, And so why are they keeping that from you? Why don't they want you to know what's going on? And this information is available, and people, why aren't people seeking it out, right? And so if your whole existence is a lie, the origin of your species and the way that, the history of your planet and the people on it, and they've lied to you about all of it, and this stuff with Darwin is all bullshit and all these things, right? That's widely accepted as the explanation. Then, how can you possibly even, where do you go from there with the origin of your species being a deception? It starts off with you being deceived about your true nature, and then everything else after that is built on these foundation of lies. So it's all going to be lies, right? And that's where we are today. And that's why our civilization will ultimately crumble, because we have no knowledge of our true nature, right? Our, where we came from and why we're here and things like this, which they've carefully kept from everybody, which is just basically evil. Okay, so I went on a walk with my dogs, and apparently I have to trim around our telephone poles that run our power wires, so they're going to spray herbicide. But I want to add this. You can't underestimate the origin that is done to you when people keep the origin story, things within your family. Sometimes there's family secrets, right? Something like you're adopted or something, right? And you're going to sense it. There's going to be some intuition. There's going to be some, hints of the truth. It's going to be there in your, dream life, your etheric life. And you're going to sense that something's wrong or something's off, right? And so they've done that collectively to all of us. The other piece of this, if you understand your true nature and your true essence, and then the spiritual aspects of your life and the nature of your soul and your purpose here on planet Earth, having a spiritual goal, having a goal where you recognize that your soul has a purpose for your life here, and finding that purpose, not only in terms of your material work that you do and your family and your whatever you're going to have in your life, the events, but also what is the spiritual side of your life, right? I've talked about this in past videos, that when I became an adult and had kids, and I had already been doing the Sajmarg meditation, so I had a spiritual life, which helped me deal with the stress. But when you're starting a career, when you're working on, when you're in your early 20s and you're starting a career, or let's say you get married later in life, right, whatever it is, and you're working your job, your career, and you have kids, and you have a marital relationship, and those are two separate things, right? Your life with your spouse, and then also your life with your kids and your family, and then you want to have a spiritual life on top of that. You have to pack that all in between like a 20-year period. And now, of course, the extended family's been decimated, so you can pay for help. You can hire a nanny or something like that if you have a lot of money. But for the most part, people who don't, it's just completely overwhelming. You're usually going to have financial difficulties, right? Because you're just starting off and you're making less money than your family needs. And so, if you have two people working, which most families do, the majority of your energy goes into your job. Like you wake up and your job gets your best energy 5 days a week. And then on your weekend, you're just spent. And then if you're up all night with screaming babies, babies that won't sleep and, toddlers, whatever it is, right? All the things that you have to deal with. And, you're just one thing after another where you just feel completely overwhelmed for long periods of time, right? If you have more than 2 kids, I mean, we're talking about an extended, 20 years of your time that goes into all this stuff. It doesn't stop when the kids get older, because it isn't like they've been trained how to function in the world. They're going to be kind of like, and I'm not calling them a burden, but like a burden, based in the structure of our society. And then they don't want anything to do with you in many cases, right? Like you're not getting any return on that investment. And you've neglected your marital life. You have no spiritual life at all because you don't have time for that shit, right? And so it just doesn't seem like it was designed for that, the way that we have it now. Of course, it was different when we were more aboriginal. But having short lifespans, imagine if you lived for hundreds of years and you could go get educated and explore, and your youth lasted for hundreds of years. You were in like your 20s or whatever it is, right? And then you can find love and get married and raise kids after you've had, a career and you're in a different state in your life. And then also work on, the end of your life for hundreds of years, work on your spiritual. I mean, it'd be a completely different type of life, right? That it would be spread over all this period of time, and you would have all these, these different things that you can learn and explore. Like I was saying this in a video, like I feel like I'm just kind of getting it now. I'm just kind of figuring out the whole thing, the puzzle. And I'm, in my 60s, and it's like too late to do anything about it in terms of all the other stuff I've done. I feel like I'm ready to do all the stuff I did. Like I'd be, if I had youthful energy right now, I could totally, be a better dad and a better husband, a better husband to my, my wife now and all these things, compared to the previous situation I was in. Because, it takes a long time just to learn all that stuff and develop the maturity. And by the time you do that, you're on the pathway to dying. But when you start to sort of figure out, there's first that they're lying to you, and then you kind of get a sense of what the truth might be, it all starts to make sense more, right? That, this is why we have so many problems. If we were designed as a slave, that comes with a lot of issues. There's genetic abnormalities because they did a sloppy job, a lot of, diseases, a lot of, whatever it is. There are a lot of issues there. And so, it just kind of makes sense that people are the way they are because of the situation that we're in, and we're like an unevolved, we're not living up to our full potential because we were never supposed to, right? If people are making a slave, they don't care about what the slaves, right? Like they're not doing it for you. They're not, whatever type of people, aliens, extraterrestrial human beings like us or whatever, that would make slaves, they would have a negative attitude towards you, right? Like you're there for their purposes, not for anything to do with you, and then leaving you behind to fend for yourselves or whatever after, they've utilized you to extract resources or whatever you were used for, right? If you were going to come to another planet and you didn't have much, and you didn't have a workforce and things, and you could create one, that would be, it would be there for that. You would serve that purpose, and then there wasn't any thought about what's going to happen next for you. They wouldn't have to do the best job in terms of their genetic manipulation. It would just be slap together something and you roll it out and get it out there working for us. So, if that's what's happened here, and that's the much more reasonable explanation given everything that we know about, and then all these other things about, the history of our planet and the history of the human beings on it, and then just all the things that have been withheld from us and our true nature, the nature of the soul and the soul's purpose. It's a lot to withhold from somebody, right? And so when I was a young kid, I knew something was off. Like, this, what they've sold to you too, because then it becomes another aspect of slavery. They've sold to you that your purpose is to get rich and famous and have a good material life. And so that's, the religion has contributed to that, bad religions, and then all the economic system and all the propaganda. And when I grew up, I knew that wasn't it. Like I kind of know now that I had past lives of doing that. And I, in a sense, learned my lesson, and I wasn't interested in that at all, right? And so I didn't have a purpose. Like I didn't, know what I was doing here because the American dream and all the things that was being sold to me didn't appeal to me, like on a, fundamental level. I knew there had to be something more. And then when I found my purpose, it, filled in all these gaps and holes, like I said, in the system with the transmission, the cleaning, is a, very efficient and, gift of a system. But, everyone can't be like me. Like, everyone can't have these kind of tendencies. You need layers of people, right? That's why no matter what I say and make fun of people or whatever, call people stupid or binary, Fs or non-abstract thinkers, those people are necessary. They keep a society going because you need all different levels of people to do the specific work, right? So, there's a fundamental, balance there that you need to have, right? The people who are more spiritual in their orientation and maybe on a, more advanced, they're more advanced than their brothers and sisters on the planet. It's their job to pull people up. And then the people that are on the lower levels, it's their job to carry society and do the materialistic work and different levels of that. The caste system in India, which of course sucks now, I'm not endorsing the caste system, was supposed to be more like about that. Of course, you can't do it based in families, genetics and things like this, because, people, higher developed souls can be born in any different family or different, whatever it is, right, environment. And so it's really about the nature of the soul. But people need to recognize that, which we don't, that there are souls that are here that are more spiritual in their orientation, and they can help to pull other people up and should be supported by the, the other parts of society. And then the people who are on their way up and the various levels on their way up, and there should be more respect about it, everybody having value, everybody contributing something on their level, on their, whatever they're supposed to do, their soul's purpose. And that just doesn't exist, right? Now we worship the lower. And so you have people who are like Kamala Harris and Donald Trump and all these other people who are on a lower level. They haven't discovered yet that money and power are the reason for being here. And maybe they've had multiple lives and they're hooked into it, whatever their personal thing is, but they're on a lower level, right? They haven't understood that there's a spiritual purpose to one's life and that there are consequences for everything that you do that go against God's will. And they're long from realizing that. It might take them multiple lives, thousands of years maybe. Who knows how long it take them before they realize that. And yet they're looked up to as the leaders of the world, the country, and that's a huge problem because they're on a lower level. The people who are dominating material are lower vibration in their consciousness, and many of them are stuck in this, in this power dynamic, and they're not happy, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, going against God's will, and they, people are looking up to them to be like them and to, attain what they attain, right? Just not the political leaders, but celebrities and all these other people. And so when your true nature is withheld from you and you don't value what you should value and you don't know why you're here and you don't know where you came from, well, then you get a fucked society like we have now, right? That's what's happened here. And of course it has. And so them perpetrating these lies when they know that there's another story here and they're keeping you from accessing that story, which is really effed up if you think about it. And so, that kind of explains everything. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this one up here. I'll put the ending on because I'll definitely put this in my Journey series.